All right, we are back with a very special guest. We are here with a very special guest of the One Rental at a Time community, a young man, 16 years old, named Grant. Hey, Grant, how are you, buddy?
Good, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing awesome. I'm doing awesome. So, Michael, this was a surprise, Grant. I didn't know we were doing this. Michael said, "Hey, I've got family friends here. I've got this young man, Grant. He would like to ask you some questions." So, man, take it away, Grant.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for your time. My first question is just going to be about your background and what kind of experience you have in investing and specifically in real estate investing.
I love it. So, this was interesting. A couple of stories, connector stories. When I was a kid, when I was about 10 or 11 years old, I played baseball. I had a kid on my team, on my baseball team. I go to his house. He invites me over after, on a Saturday. I go to his home. He has all the video games, motorcycles, just big screen TVs everywhere, beautiful home, and, brand new cars. And I'm like, at 10, 11 years old, I'm like, what do your parents do? And he said, my dad's in real estate. And I'm like, really? How does that work? And so at dinner with his family, I'm asking his dad about real estate. And his dad's an appraiser in real estate. I started asking him, and what's really cool is that he starts telling me, Grant, he starts telling me about, no, really all the money is really in investing in real estate and owning the real estate. So that was my first exposure. When I got out of high school, I started reading books about personal development and making money. And it became really clear to me. I read a book called Nothing Down for the 90s by Robert Allen. And at about age 19, I knew that real estate was going to be the path for me. I had a small landscape business. Basically, I was mowing yards. I had, like, I don't know, 20, 25, 30 um, customers, clients, where I would go mow their yard, take care of their yards on a weekly basis. That's how I was able to save up down payment money. But that was basically the early beginnings. At about 22 years old, I got licensed, became a realtor. And from there, I was both. But I always knew that I needed to buy real estate and own real estate, not just be an agent.
Great, thank you. So you talk about real estate investing. So I was wondering how, in your mind, you prioritize real estate investing over or with other forms of more traditional investing options, like stock trading, for example.
Yeah. And kind of like Michael Zuber's story, I dabbled in stock trading in the late 90s. It was kind of a fad, kind of like today, like if we go back a few years ago, crypto, investing in crypto was like a big thing over the last 3 or 4 years. It became real popular. I did stock trading and I made a lot of money. And of course, I lost a lot of money during the dot-com bust. Very similar to Michael, very minimal though. I was always still very serious about real estate. I just think real estate, because of the nature of it, people need a few things. They need food, we need clothing, and we need shelter. And so, because housing and real estate is it's an absolute must. I've always just thought of it as a great, as the superior investment of all investments.
Great, thank you. So for young people specifically, there's this perception that housing prices are going up. It's becoming more expensive to own houses or purchase houses. How accessible do you think real estate investing is for the younger generation?
I think it's different, and not to compare and say, I think there were certain components that were easier when I started 30 years ago, or even, you go 30 years ago, 20 years ago, 10 years ago. There were aspects in the industry and investing that were easier. And that is absolutely true. But also, too, the technology and access and mobility, the ability to invest out of state, or the access to data and the access to research tools and things, and learning a market, a buy box. Um, so I think even still, for younger people, absolutely the door is still very open. I don't know that if political, global things change that, I feel like that could be something that changes. But right now, today, I think for young people, absolutely, real estate investing is available. There are as many opportunities now as there were 30 years ago. And I would really say that even with pricing and interest rates and, complexities of the economy currently, um, Michael has a great tool, Grant. And I think for any young person, to take a look at the 50-year spreadsheet and then even maybe check out some of the content that Michael created around the 50-year spreadsheet. And so 2024, 2025 probably looks a lot like the early 1980s. And, a lot of money has been made in the 70s and 80s and 90s and all along during up times and down times. So um, it's available. It is absolutely available for young people.
Great. So you talk a little bit about a buy box. So among that and other things, could you quickly just describe what your process is for purchasing a house, like what you're looking for, that type of thing?
I think great, such a good question, Grant. I think for sure you want to focus in on a marketplace. So, usually in a marketplace, are you going to do it nearby where you live? I love Michael and Olivia's story. It's very expensive in the Bay Area. Um, can you do it in the Bay Area? Maybe some parts of the Bay Area. Yes, it could be done. But they found a market that was, a few hours away in Fresno, California. So that works. So I think, are you going to stay local? Are you going to go out of state or maybe, long distance investing? I think, but picking a market, number one, and then Michael teaches building a buy box and learning and studying that market. A big thing that is not emphasized, Michael emphasizes it, I emphasize it, not very popular in today's culture, which is patience. Patience is a big deal. And that I see a lot of people lose money because of impatience. They want to act fast. They want to get in the game. They want to get on the property ladder. And so what Michael teaches, the discipline of studying your market and understanding what a good deal is or an average deal. And then once you know what average or a good deal is, now you can pursue great deals. And that's really a big key component of, the discipline. So a couple of little also things to look at when you're studying a market is to look at what the median value is. Affordability and median value is a big thing. And these are very easy to access things. If you were going to Kansas City, Missouri, or Fresno, California, or Dallas, Texas, anywhere in the country, you could Google search and find what the median value is in any city, any marketplace pretty easily. And so once you figure that out, usually what I found and what Michael also, I believe, would echo is that, most of the opportunity for what we do with one rental at a time is usually below the median value. And that's where you'll find fixer uppers, you'll find distressed properties, you'll find opportunities for add value, for equity gain, potentially to buy something and have instant built in equity. Also, Grant, as a young person, somebody I think you should follow is a friend of mine, Thatch Nguyen. Do you know Thatch? He's on
Don't
social
think
media.
so. Yeah,
He's out
I'll
of
have to,
Seattle,
yeah, let me give them.
Thatch Nguyen, and he's a great follow for young people. He has sons. He has his kids are maybe junior. I think his oldest son is starting college, and then I think his youngest son is a junior in high school. But Thatch, he has cars and lifestyle and lots of cars and really fun in terms of social media. But he's also very, very disciplined. If you know him, which I've known Thatch for about 30 plus years, he's very disciplined the same way Michael is, the same way Michael is in that disciplined approach and being patient. So, yeah, there's a lot, but I think patience and really learning your market, picking a market and understanding the median value, and then really understanding you want to buy great deals that are really going to cash flow from day one. So,
So you talk about the median price and how you find that using a Google search. So I was wondering, in the process of researching and purchasing, what kinds of tools and sites you use for that?
Great question. Just generalized tools. I'm a real estate broker also, so I'm licensed, like agents or realtors. So I do have access to the multiple listing. That's a little bit of an X factor for me. So I do have some extra tools, but just generally speaking, you don't need that. You don't have to become an agent or broker. If you have, like, as an example, Grant, what do you like in school? Do you like math or science, or what? Are you going to become an engineer? What do you think career path that you would go?
I'm leaning towards economics. I've found that pretty interesting.
Economics. I love it. So as an example, you could have a degree in economics, potentially maybe, other things, finance degree, maybe, again, other components. You could have a W-2 job. And in fact, I would advocate, in fact, in some ways, I wish I had maybe been more academic as a young person your age and actually went to school and got a finance degree or master, something along that lines. Or maybe law is something I've always been, really curious and interested in. But I think the misconception, you have to be an entrepreneur or you have to be more like self-employed mindset, and that's just not the case. Um, I would highly advocate, and I'm going to answer your question too, by the way, but I'm on this path. I really believe that, having a high level, high income W-2 with disposable and having stable income is absolutely a great way to do this. And then doing and learning real estate investing as the other thing, not necessarily the side hustle. It could be a side hustle, but the other thing that you do, the other pursuit of creating wealth as purely an investment form. So to your question, the tools, Redfin is awesome. Zillow is awesome. Those are websites where you can search properties nationwide. There's a tool called Renometer. I believe they still have a free version of it where you can go in there and you can research. But those tools alone are more than enough for you to research and learn markets. And then maybe if you want to do some direct to seller marketing and things, there are things like Property Radar that are paid services, $99 a month. That's not where you start though. There's so much free education and free information out there on YouTube, Redfin, Zillow, both learning the process, the one rental at a time channel. I love what Michael's doing with school. So he has a school community. I'm going to twist his arm and tell him to give you a 60-day trial and give you a free membership for 60 days. After 60 days, though, it's $20 a month. Because I do think you should pay because you'll pay attention. But anyway, those are all, there's plenty of resources out there for free. So the Redfin, Renometer, Zillow, and then lots of information, educational stuff on YouTube.
Great, thank you. So you talk a little bit about restarting your career, maybe in something a little bit more lucrative. I was wondering if you could go back to when you were 20 years old, what's a few things that you would do differently, maybe one or two?
Um, I think just, when I was 20, I was lucky in that I was very thrifty. Another word would be frugal, and very, very diligent about my money and how I saved money. So actually, I did have that resource, and that was very much a part of my foundation as a young person. I was a good saver, saved a lot of money in that. I think maybe what I would have slightly done different is just maintain that discipline. When I got into my 30s, I had a significant amount of money. I started to really kind of go the other side. So I would say, really plan for vacations and traveling and doing fun stuff. But I think just having that discipline, I would have maintained that discipline even more so into my 30s and 40s, which I did not. When I got a little bit older and I had a pretty significant amount of success, I started to really kind of be wild when spending money. And so, I think it's much easier to be disciplined and to be thrifty, to be frugal, and be penny wise in how you spend your money. Develop that habit early. and then also just the habit of saving money, and always, just being being a good conscientious saver to invest. And so that would be it. I think also too, like, not, at 20 years old, I did not put a lot of value in higher education. And even though when I was young, and Michael and I, our generation, it was a big deal to go to college. And, if you didn't go to college, you were considered a loser. Today, it's not so much. Um, I just didn't have the interest. But today, looking back, I probably would have definitely got finished school, because later I learned the discipline. I could have really, probably locked down and, got a finance degree, maybe a little bit of an accounting background. I think that would have helped me a lot more. And or even maybe even, law school, something like that. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there, but that's what I want for my kids. Even now, I think going higher education, I think there's still a lot of value there, especially if you're going to go finance, accounting, law. I think those, or, if you go medical, I think medical also still has a lot of upside value.
Great. So in these conversations, I've heard a lot about house hacking as a good way to start. So really quickly, could you kind of walk me through the process of what that is and how you do it, and then maybe some of the pros and cons to that?
I love it. I did the ultimate house hack, and my buddy Thatch Nguyen also has a great story. Ultimate house hack. I lived at home for a long time. I lived at home until I was like 25, 26 years old. But I also had several rental properties. So I lived with my grandmother, and I lived, um, so I was like, whatever, 25 years old, 26 years old. Um, but I was buying properties. I started buying properties when I was 21. So by the time I had moved out, and I had a very strong career in real estate as a real estate agent or broker, um, so that is the ultimate house hack, right? Like, if you could live at home and you're buying rentals. My buddy Thatch, I think him and his wife Cammie lived with his mom and dad, and I want to say, like, he had, like, I don't know, he had a portfolio. I mean, he had a lot of properties, and he was still living at home. And I think for Thatch too, I think he didn't move out of his mom and dad's house until he was in his late 20s or maybe even 30 years old. But he was wealthy. He was already a millionaire, like, living at his mom and dad's. He was a multimillionaire probably by the time he went out and bought his first house. And his first house was like a multi-million-dollar house when he moved out on his own, him and his wife. So that's the ultimate house hack. Another way to house hack, you could do where you buy a house, rent out the rooms, buy a 3-bedroom, rent out a room, rent out a room, rent out a room. I like that idea. I would definitely do that if I was not living at home. You know, there's, will buy, or guys or gals will buy, a duplex, rent out one side. They're getting the income from that. Maybe rent out a room in the unit they live in, or with a fourplex or an apartment building. But house hacking, absolutely. And even as a 50-something-year-old adult male, there was a time when I was divorced, Grant, and I don't recommend getting divorced. It's an absolutely horrible financial decision. It's an absolutely horrible financial decision to get a divorce. But even as a divorced male, I could have easily, house hacked. That could have been another idea that I could have, rented out a couple of rooms to buddies, or bought an apartment building, or bought a hotel or a motel and lived in one of the units. And then, like, there's so many cool ways you can house hack. So house hacking, absolutely golden. But also too, you know, what is your culture? Where is your family from?
We're currently living in the East Coast, so Boston area.
Boston area. I love it. So as an example, like, even multi-generational, where families live together, though, grandma lives with us, living with your mom and dad, adult children, all of that. I love the family unit of potentially house hacking also, where even as a married couple, I like that idea. So I love it. House hacking can really work.
Great. So my last question for you today is going to be, what do you think is one mistake that young investors should avoid?
Oh, such a good question. Not getting caught up in the hype of social media and the FOMO, fear of missing out, and all of that nonsense. There's so much of that, and that, the brands, and the shoes and the clothing brands and all of that. And don't get me wrong, work hard. If you want to go buy a nice one shirt and, or one outfit that's your outfit that, you know, for that period, that's cool. I get it. I was like that as a young guy, but I'll tell you that again, early on, um, being practical, no, just whatever, t-shirts, jeans, you still have maybe a nice outfit for a Saturday night if you're going on a date, or, you're going to a special event or whatever, a party or something like that. But just not getting caught up where, shoe collections and, fancy watches and fancy cars and all of that. And even if and when your time comes to buy a car, go buy it, go buy a lease return, go buy a car, for years. When I was, even when I was in my 30s and I was spending money, multi millionaire, if I was going to go buy a Mercedes, I wouldn't necessarily, I bought a new Mercedes before, but a lot of times, most of the cars I buy maybe have 30, 40,000 miles on them. They're lease returns. They're beautiful cars, BMW, Mercedes, Lexus, whatever. But I would buy a lease return, something with low mileage, something in really good shape. And I'm buying it for, 60 cents on the dollar, as an example. So I'm still getting a good deal when I'm buying even luxury products, if that makes sense. But I would say just stay away from luxury products. And then for all the young people out there, a really good follow, and you may or may not know. Do you know Alex Hormozy, Grant? Do you know who that is?
I don't think so.
Alex Hormozy. He's a big influencer on. He's gone really hardcore business, but he talks about house hacking. He talks about he had like $100,000 saved from his business, and he was like sharing a bedroom with a guy for, I forget, $500 or something crazy, house hacking to keep his expenses down. Like, the guy did the ultimate sacrifice. He would work 10, 12 hours, 15 hours a day for months and months and months, maybe years. But he talks a lot about sacrifice as a young person to get your thing going, whatever that is, business or, career or your portfolio of housing. So I would encourage you, follow Alex Hormozy on social media. Check out some of his earlier YouTube videos about sacrifice and, getting started. The thing I would say that, as long as you can put off like luxury items and, fancy and lifestyle, the more you can. And I'm not saying, by the way, that's what you're working for. I'm not saying to never have it. I'm saying get to such a stable point where you're able to pay for it through your cash flow, that you have so much equity, so much wealth, and so much cash flow that now you can just do whatever you want. And now you're financially free. You have that ability to create that. Anybody watching and listening to this has the ability to create that. And so, and then I would say, just again, once you get there, just be cautious that you don't go crazy and go to the other side and just start blowing money so crazy. So, really have a respect for money, because you're going to work hard for it.
All right. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to answer my questions. So I'm going to hand it back to Mr. Zuber now.